Hello, this is a tutorial for a card game I created called Collider Cards. In this game, you'll be playing with a unique deck of 81 cards. The deck is made up of 6 different suits, the 3 prime suits and the 3 noble suits. The prime suits, red, blue, and yellow, all can interact with each other, meaning that the red and blue cards work together, the blue and yellow cards work together, and the yellow and the red cards work together during gameplay. The noble suits are unique in that they do not work with anything but themselves, so this green will only work with other green cards. And also, for the colorblind people, you can see them as circles, squares, and triangles, and the noble suits are a mixture of those two shapes. When 2 prime suits work together, they change into a noble suit. So when the blue and red here, or the square and triangle, work together, they create a purple. And they become purple as long as they are merged together during gameplay. Gameplay itself is very simple. At the beginning of the game, you will shuffle the deck of cards and then draw out a waveform, which is the word for the pattern of cards you see on the screen here now. There are 4 different waveforms that come with the game, and many more can be made through play. After you've shuffled out the cards and played out the waveform, you will draw a hand of cards. In Solitaire, which is the version I am showing here, you will have a hand of 5 cards. During Solitaire play, I like to keep my cards on the table so I can see everything at once, but when you play multiplayer, you will hold the cards in your hand like a traditional card game. A player's turn consists of 2 parts. The first part is playing a card from your hand onto the table. There are 2 ways to do this. When you take a card from your hand, you either play it at the bottom of the waveform, attaching it to one of the cards that's at the bottom. For example, attaching it here or here. Or you may take the card from your hand and put it by itself floating around outside of the gameplay. The reason you would choose to put it out here is because of the timing of the next part of the turn. So for this example, I'm going to play this card here. And now I will show you the next part. After you play a card from your hand, the second part of your turn is letting the Collider engine run. What this means is the cards that are on the table here and that would be floating over there begin to activate. And what you do is you look for the highest numbered card on of the available cards. The cards that do not have cards above, like under them or above them, are active. So this 2, this 8, this 1, this 7, and this 4 are all considered active. All the other cards are considered inert because there's stuff on top of them right now. So you look for the highest numbered active card. In this case, it would be this red 8. And then you look for a card that's the lowest numbered card that matches its suit. And remember that red, blue, and yellow all can work together. So this red 8 is looking for anything that's red, blue, or yellow, and there are none available. So you move it doesn't do anything at all. You move to the next highest card, which would be this green 7. The green 7 activates looking for the lowest numbered card it can work with, and because it's green, it can only pull a green card. If you look here, this is the lowest numbered green card that is active. When the 7 finds this card, it will pull it from this spot and attach it to itself here. And you put them off a little bit like this. And now these 2 cards merge together to create a new number in that spot. You add the 2 numbers together and it becomes 8. Once the 2 cards merge, one of 4 different things will occur. This is a little cheat sheet that comes with the game to help you remember what they do. If it is anything numbered 9 or less, it doesn't do anything yet. They simply stick together and remain that new number. In this case, a green 8. Once anything moves on the board, you have to start searching again from the highest card. In this case, the red 8 and this green 8 are tied for the highest card. Any tie that happens during the game is broken by player choice. So I can choose either one of these to go first. I'm going to choose this green one to go first because I see an easy way to score points right now. So this green 8 is looking for the lowest green card it can find, which is this green 2. It pulls this green 2 to it, and now they become a total of 10. 10 points, or the total of 10, scores them as points. You take all of the cards that are involved, and you place them face down in front of you in a pile, and that is your points that you will earn at the end of the game. Now that is finished, you go back to start it again at the highest numbered card. The highest numbered card now is this red 8. This red 8 is going to look for the lowest numbered card it can interact with. The lowest numbered card it can interact with, because red works with yellow or blue, or red, will be this 3. So this 3 will get pulled to this 8, and they will attach. They are now a purple 11. An 11 or 12 is called a smash. And the way that works is one of those cards will go into your hand, and all of the other cards that are in the smash are discarded out of the game. So you pick a card out of this smash. I'm going to throw away the 3 because I don't need it. I'm going to add this 8 to my hand. As soon as that happens, you check to see if your hand has created at least 3 in a row, meaning 1, 2, 3, for example, or 3 of a kind, 1, 1, 1, for example. In this case, adding the 8 to my hand created 6, 7, and 8. That allows me to score all of those cards from my hand into my score pile. I will draw back up new cards in the solitaire game, but in the multiplayer game, you do not draw cards up. You are actually trying to get rid of all your cards, so that is also a good thing. Anyway, so the engine moves on. The highest card out here now is this yellow 7. This yellow 7 is looking for a yellow, blue, or red that it can work with. So we come over here, and this is what it can work with, this 6. It pulls the 6 to itself, and they attach. They become a yellow 13. Anything that's 13 or higher explodes. You discard all of the cards involved in the explosion, and you draw back that many cards from the deck face down. These cards go into the floating area that was described earlier, and they'll be turned face up at the end of the turn. And we go back to the engine again. So this highest number is now this purple 4, but there are no other purples out here, so we move on. The next highest one would be this orange 3, which finds this orange 2. They attach to become an orange 5, and because it's 9 or less, that's all that happens. If you notice now, I am out of things that can interact. This 4 can't find anything anymore, neither can this orange, and the rest of the cards are face down. So my turn is over. When a turn ends, you turn over all the face down cards face up. They do not activate or do anything like that at this time. They are simply being readied for the next turn. And in the solitaire game, after you've flipped over all the cards, you will draw cards back into your hand to make sure you have 5 cards in your hand. If you ever have more than 5 cards in your hand, you have to discard back down to 5 during the solitaire game. And that is an example of how the game runs. My next turn begins now, where I will pick another one of my cards, and I will put it either attached to the bottom of one of these strings, which is the word for those cards all touching each other, or I'll put it out here floating. And for this example, I will do that so I can show you how floating cards work now. So I'll choose this purple, just for the example here. So when the engine runs, which is what it's doing now, the game will start with the highest card in the waveform. Every card here always goes first, then the cards that are floating go next. In this case, this 9 is the highest numbered card, and it finds this 5 orange. It pulls the whole group of them because they're stuck together, and it becomes a 14 of orange. 14 is too high for things. It creates an explosion. So I discard these 3 cards, and I put 3 new cards into play. Every time cards go into the floating area, you have to check to see how many of them there are. If there are ever 5 or more floating cards, they merge together into a new string in the waveform. To do this, you take all of the cards that are in the floating, face down, and you shuffle them together. And then they create something called a 5 string. To do this, you simply lay out the cards like this. The extra card that was out there turns face up and goes back to being a normal floating card. As soon as that occurs, we start the engine over again from the top. So the highest number now is this green 6, but it can't find anything. The next highest card would be these 3 4s, and any one of them can go first because you can choose. I'll choose this red 4 to go first, and it will pull this 1 to itself, like that. And it becomes a 5 red. And then we start over again at the top. Every time something moves, you have to start again from the highest number, which now is this 9. The 9 pulls this yellow 4, and they explode because they are a 13. Putting out 2 more face down cards out here. We go back to this list. This 6 is the highest now. There's no greens it can pull. Then this 5 is the highest one, and there's nothing it can pull out here. There's no red, yellow, or blue out in the waveform. So then it looks to the floating cards, and it does find a red that it can pull. So it will pull the floating card to itself, and it attaches it like that. And now, as you can see, there's nothing else left to match. There's no oranges, there's no greens, there's no purples, and there's nothing for this 9 to interact with. That would end my turn. I would flip over all the face down cards, draw back up to 5, and then I would go on to my next turn. Instead of doing that, though, I'm going to show you how floating cards work. So let's say this is already out here like this because they attached. This red 4 would look around the table as I did a minute ago, but when it finds this card, it's actually higher, so it would not pull here. Instead, it would fail. It would do nothing. So I would end up running all these cards. This 6 can't find anything. This 4 can't find anything. This 4 can't find anything smaller or equal to itself. That orange can't find anything. Then I go to the cards out here, and I start to do the same thing. They work exactly like the cards that are attached, meaning that this 5 red will pull this lower numbered 4 red to become a 9 out there floating. Now it looks like there's 5 cards out here, which would create a new string, but attached cards, merged cards, do only count as 1 card when counting that. So 1, 2, 3 instead of 5. And I would go back to my turn again, end of my turn, which would be flipping this over like this, flipping this over like that, and then drawing a card here, flipping these over, and then I would go on to my next turn. The object of the game in Solitaire is to score as many cards as possible while clearing out all of the strings. That includes strings that are created from explosions. So these cards out here, floating cards, do not count toward the end of the game. If you clear out everything here, you win, you finish. At the end of the game, you get 1 point for every card you have here, and 10 points if you finish clearing out every card from the waveform. If the deck runs out of cards and you can't play anything else from your hand to create any new effects, any new reactions, the game ends immediately there during Solitaire, and you discard 3 cards for every card still in your hand and still in the waveform. And then you get your final score from that, whatever's left over from here. That's how the solitaire game works. The multiplayer game is very similar, but instead of having a hand of 5 cards, you'll have a hand of 10 cards. You'll hold the hand of 10 cards in your hand like a regular game, keeping the information secret from the other players. During your turn, works exactly like the solitaire game. You play 1 card, either attaching it to the bottom of one of these strings or floating it out to the side. And then you score points just like you do normally with the 10s, 11s, and 12s, bringing cards to your point value. The difference is, during the multiplayer game, you're trying to get rid of all the cards in your hand first. When you get rid of all the cards in your hand, each other player playing, up to 4 players total, have to give you the cards from their hand to add to your score pile. You add those to your score pile, everybody gets points for whatever they have in their score piles, and you move on. The object of the game is to score 100 points total. And each time that somebody empties their hand, you rebuild a new waveform and start from scratch. A hand can also end if somebody empties the waveform before people's hands are gone. That scores that person an extra 5 points on top of taking other people's cards. And that is the entirety of the tutorial. Thank you for listening and being patient with my amateur attempt at education here. Have a great day.